The first thing I heard that morning was the soft buzz of my phone. A notification from the wedding planner app reminding me we were just 48 hours away from the happiest day of my life. I lay there for a moment, watching the sunlight crawl across the ceiling, trying to let that phrase mean something. It didn't. Not yet. Getting married at 32 wasn't what I'd imagined when I was younger. But life rarely goes according to blueprint, especially when you grow up the youngest in a family like mine. Loud, chaotic, competitive. I was always the buffer, the one who smoothed things over, who swallowed her pride to keep the peace. Peacemaker. That was their word for it. I had other names in my head. Desmond stirred beside me, murmured something about the dog needing to go out. I nodded and sat up, my bare feet touching the cold hardwood. This house, we bought it last fall in Henderson, Nevada, was the first place that felt like mine. Ours. Desmond and I had spent months making it feel like a refuge. He's quiet, where I'm careful. Steady, where I've always had to pretend. He reads between my silences and never pushes me to speak before I'm ready. That alone made me feel safer with him than I'd ever felt under my parents' roof. I looked down at my phone again. Final dress fitting. Florist confirmation. Cake delivery. All those little things marching toward the ceremony like soldiers to war. Sometimes, the calmest days hide the darkest truths. That afternoon, Lavina called. She never called. "Dinner," she said. "At my place, Friday night. Whole family. We want to celebrate you before the big day." I didn't answer right away. Desmond was in the kitchen, chopping something for lunch. He looked over when I didn't respond. "She's never done anything like this," I whispered. "She doesn't strike me as the sentimental type," he said. I smiled faintly, trying to push down the discomfort curling in my chest. Maybe it's her way of making peace. He didn't say anything, but his eyebrows raised just enough to tell me what he thought. Later, in bed, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan spun quietly above us, and I lay there thinking about all the birthdays Lavina had skipped, the promotion she never congratulated me for, the engagement she hadn't acknowledged until Mom forced it into the group chat. Still, I typed, "We'll be there." My gut said no, but years of silencing it said yes louder. Growing up, dinner at our house was its own battlefield. Lavina always had the floor, loud, dramatic, always performing for attention. Our brother joined in just enough to feel superior. Me? I served as the audience. Mom would pat my hand and say, "Let your sister shine. She needs it more." Even then, I knew what it meant. Lavina was the show pony, the one with more to prove, more to lose. I was the fallback, the quiet one, reliable. I learned not to expect praise, just not to cause problems. And even now, grown, educated, independent, about to marry a man who adored me, I still felt like that girl at the dinner table, holding her breath, waiting to be noticed. Friday arrived fast. The day felt off before it even started. I chose a soft blue dress, simple, elegant, calming. Desmond watched me put it on and said, "You look like you're heading into a negotiation, not a dinner party." I laughed, but it stuck in my throat. Rosa texted me twice. "You sure about going? Something feels weird about this." I didn't answer. The clasp on my necklace snapped while I was fastening it. My phone froze for a full minute before restarting itself. Desmond parked in the wrong spot at the grocery store and swore he remembered it being different. Small things. But they piled up. "If I'd known what was coming," I said to him, pulling my coat over my shoulders, "I would have run barefoot into the desert." Lavina's house looked like something from a catalog. Perfect lighting. Perfect decor. Perfectly empty smiles. Everyone was already seated when we arrived. No one stood to greet us. There was no seat for Desmond, not beside me, not even nearby. "Sit here," Lavina gestured to the end of the table, the far end. I took the seat, glancing back at Desmond. He stood awkwardly near the door, like a waiter waiting for instructions. Lavina came around with a bottle of red. "For you," she smiled. "Specially picked." She poured only my glass. I looked at Desmond. He didn't say anything, but his eyes locked on mine. I lifted the glass, hesitated, then took a sip. I smiled. Pretended it tasted fine. Pretended everything was fine. That sip changed everything. I just didn't know it yet. It started as a dull throb right behind my eyes, like a quiet warning. I blinked hard, thinking maybe it was the lighting or the wine. But then the sound of laughter around me grew distant, muffled, like someone had turned the volume down on the world. I looked down at my hands resting on my lap. They felt disconnected, like they didn't belong to me. Desmond leaned in. "You okay?" I nodded, too quickly. "Just tired," I whispered. He didn't buy it, but he let it go. I smiled, or tried to. Years of practice made it easy. Pretend you're fine. Smile at the right moments. Nod when expected. Say thank you, even when it cuts. I had learned to minimize my own pain. It's what women in my family do best. I tried to stay upright while the world tilted slightly, like I was underwater and everyone else was breathing fine. Lavina stood and clinked her glass with a fork. "I'd like to say something." She looked straight at me, smiling of course, and began, "Waylon has always been the gentle one, the quiet one, the kind of girl who followed more than she led. That's why we were all shocked when she found someone." Polite laughter. A few chuckles. Someone said, "That's true." I stared at my plate, willing my vision to stay clear. She continued, "But seriously, Desmond seems like a great guy. I mean, what are the odds?" I caught our brother's eyes. He looked away. Even he wasn't comfortable with this charade. Desmond looked at me again. I didn't meet his eyes. "Do you want to leave?" he mouthed. I shook my head. Leaving would have felt like defeat. I wasn't ready to surrender, not tonight. The air thickened after her toast, like everyone had silently agreed to the terms of some unspoken game. Conversations shifted, and Lavina took control like a conductor. "Remember when Waylon ruined Christmas when she was 10? She said, laughing as if the memory was charming. "She cried because her stocking didn't have glitter. We had to delay opening gifts for hours." I forced a laugh. Then another story. Then another. A cousin chimed in. Aunt Martha followed. Even my uncle, who barely spoke at gatherings, managed to remember something humiliating about my teenage years. Each story chipped away at the walls I had built just to make it to this point in life. I tried to steer the conversation elsewhere. "Did you see how much snow Tahoe got this week?" Silence. Then someone said, "Oh, don't be so sensitive." My glass was full again. I hadn't asked. I hadn't noticed. This wasn't nostalgia, I thought. This was war, dressed as family. It hit me then. The dinner wasn't about celebrating my life. It was about reaffirming a hierarchy I thought I'd outgrown. Desmond's phone buzzed. He stepped outside to take the call, apologizing with a soft hand on my back. The moment he left the room, Lavina leaned across the table, her voice low, sharp. "You really think he's the one?" I didn't answer. She smirked. "He's not even from here. Does he know about what happened with Aaron?" I froze. No one else heard it. Just me. Just her. Like a blade sliding between ribs, clean, efficient. I stood too fast. My head spun. The room tilted harder than before. I reached for the back of my chair, missed, stumbled slightly. Not one person moved. They didn't trip me, but they sure watched me fall. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection. Mascara smudged, lipstick faded, eyes red-rimmed and unsure. I looked like a guest at my own execution. A memory floated in, Mom's voice, years ago. "You're the storm," she told Lavina. "Waylon's just the silence." I turned the tap and splashed water on my face. Cold, sharp, real. Part of me wanted to leave, just walk out. But that would have meant she won, that I couldn't take it, and I would. I dried my face with the paper towel, drew a deep breath, and walked back out. Lavina smiled when I returned. "Feel better?" she said, sweet as syrup. I nodded. I sat. I didn't eat. I didn't say much either. Just watched, studied, noticed things I hadn't before. Like how my cousin kept glancing at Lavina before laughing. How my aunt never once looked me in the eye. Like I was solving a puzzle made out of faces I'd known my whole life. Desmond came back in. He caught my eye, concerned, but I gave him a quick shake of the head. We stayed another 40 minutes. The night ended with hugs, with "so happy for you," and "you looked beautiful tonight," and "can't wait for the wedding?" Lavina leaned in and kissed my cheek. "Can't wait for your big day," she said. And just like that, she set the stage for a tragedy. And I had applauded. I woke up tangled in sheets that felt unfamiliar, stiff, cold in places that should have been warm. My mouth was dry, my tongue heavy like it didn't belong to me. I sat up slowly, letting the nausea settle before I stood. The bedroom looked exactly as I left it, but I didn't feel like the same woman who went to bed last night. Desmond was gone. I saw his work bag missing, shoes no longer by the door. He'd left quietly, probably didn't want to wake me. A note sat on the nightstand. "You were out cold last night. Are you okay?" Out cold. That phrase stayed with me. I rubbed my temple, trying to piece together what had happened. The wine, Lavina's smirk, that soft laugh as she leaned in too close. I could hear the echoes, but they weren't clear. My memories felt like someone else's home movie. Jerky, overexposed, sound out of sync. In the bathroom, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. My makeup was smudged, hair flattened oddly on one side, like someone had pressed a hand there too long. My collarbone had a faint red mark. Could have been nothing. Could have been everything. I stepped into the shower, hoping hot water would bring clarity. Instead, it brought fragments. Laughter too loud, hands touching my scalp, someone saying, "It'll be fine." My breath caught. I ran my fingers through my hair, heart pounding. Something felt wrong. I jumped out, grabbed the mirror from the cabinet, and twisted around, checking my hairline. That's when I saw it. A patch. Small, maybe the size of a quarter. Shaved clean. Hidden, unless you were looking. My knees buckled. I sat on the floor, towel wrapped around me, shaking. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't drunk behavior. That was deliberate. And I couldn't remember it. They did something to me. Lavina's voice came back. "You'll thank me one day." No, that couldn't have been real. Could it? And then something even colder hit me. This wasn't the first time. Suddenly, I was 13 again. It was the morning after my birthday sleepover. I'd woken up to chunks of my hair gone. Lavina had cut it while I slept. Said it was a prank. Mom laughed when I cried. "She's too sensitive. It's just hair." I'd beg them to ground her, to punish her. They didn't. They never had. They taught her early that I wasn't worth protecting. Back in the present, I stood slowly, each step toward the sink, feeling like I was dragging the weight of that little girl behind me. I looked back in the mirror, not as a woman about to be married, but as someone finally seeing her history through clean glass. Desmond called around noon. I ignored it at first, then texted, "Just tired. Wedding stress." I didn't tell him about the patch. I didn't say I felt violated in my own body. I didn't say that something had been done to me while people laughed and passed the potatoes. Isn't that what they've trained me to believe? That my pain always needs to be softened with explanations? I canceled my dress fitting, told the planner I had a migraine. And then I sat down with a notebook and started writing. Every moment Lavina had made me feel small. Every joke, every "you're too sensitive," every sideways glance when I walked into a room. I wasn't being paranoid. I was building a case. That evening, my phone lit up. A message from Lavina. "Feeling better? You looked like you'd seen a ghost." Attached was a photo. Me, half asleep at the dinner table. My head tilted, mouth slightly open, eyes unfocused. I looked gone. Her caption read, "Bridezilla's about to snap." She knew what she'd done. She was proud of it. I didn't reply. I forwarded the photo to myself, saved it in a new folder labeled Evidence. Then I started researching, drugging without consent, tampering with appearance, laws about bodily autonomy. I wasn't filing a complaint. I was preparing a case. For the first time, I wasn't explaining. I was planning. Later that night, I got a text from Janelle, one of my cousins. "That dinner was gross. You okay?" I stared at the screen, then typed, "Did you see anything? Weird? A pause. Then, just Lavina whispering to Trish. They were in your room before you got home. Said they were fixing something. Fixing what? They were in my house. Before I even got there, it hit me hard. They didn't just drug me. They didn't just humiliate me. They choreographed the entire show. I woke with a hollow ache behind my eyes. The room felt slightly off, light too sharp, air too still. I rubbed my temples and rose, stumbling toward the desk where contract papers lay strewn. My heart flipped when I saw one page pulled forward. My name had vanished from a clause that defined half the settlement, a blank space where it once had been. Panic flooded me. Had I imagined it? No. I remembered. I knew it had been there. Desmond walked in, carrying coffee from the kitchen. He paused, studying me. You look upset. I swallowed hard. Just nerves, I said, voice steady despite quiver inside. I forced him a calm smile. Inside, shock simmered into a quiet anger I couldn't hide. I walked to the kitchen for breakfast, hoping to ground myself in normalcy. Lavina was already there, her posture casual, smile effortless, as if she'd been waiting. Under her placemat lay a copy of the contract, the altered version, my name scratched out in faint pencil marks. I cleared my throat. Why is this different? I asked, trying not to tremble. She shrugged, brows lifting innocently. Must be a typo. We'll fix it tomorrow. She laughed lightly. I felt humiliation knotting in my throat. My heart pounded. Collusion echoed in every polite dismissal. I glanced at the other guests, frozen faces. Not one volunteered to help. My phone rang, cutting through the tension. It was the lab I'd used last month. I answered, voice hesitant. The technician said they had no record of my tests, no files, no reports, not even a trace. I asked about the report I submitted to the wedding planner. She said, never received. My chest tightened. Someone cleared data. Someone removed proof. A memory flickered. Lavina had once offered to organize both our medical documents. I thought at the time it was helpful. Now I saw the suggestion as strategic. My blood went cold. I ended the call before more damage could surface. I pressed my palm to the kitchen counter, tasting bitterness. I dialed Malis under the guise of inquiring about a missing letter from Mom. Her voice caught. In the background, muffled voices. She admitted, trembling. I saw Miss Lavina with test envelopes last night. I asked, barely whispering. Did she take them? She hesitated. I don't know. I was scared. The confirmation hit like a stone to the chest. Later, I sat across from Desmond with the contract pages and evidence of missing files. He listened. He believed. He proposed calling the attorney for the original signed version. He urged contacting the lab's chain of custody logs. I nodded. Together, we planned to set up a hidden recording in Lavina's office under the guise of helping with decor. I remembered her earlier comment, fixing things quietly. Now that phrase felt like a threat. That evening, Lavina texted me, let's host a toast tomorrow night in your honor. My stomach twisted, but I accepted. I resolved to attend under my terms. I wore gloves. I packed my own bottle. I told myself, whatever she pours, I won't drink. I squeezed the contract copy in my bag. It felt heavy, as though it were the only thing standing between me and everything she'd tried to erase. Evening settled over Lavina's private garden, just as the sky deepened to indigo. Lanterns floated among the trees. Petals drifted across the gravel. A string quartet played softly under the trellis. I stood at the edge with Desmond by my side, gloves on, my dress long-sleeved, my throat tight. I inhaled, telling myself, this is not a celebration. It's a trial, a test. I swallowed the tension, nudged my shoulders straight. Guests arrived in clusters, greeting Lavina with wide smiles. Champagne flutes clicked. She moved through them, elegant, poised, offering glasses. Each handshake, each hug was calibrated. I followed, pressing my lips together when she poured, when she held my hand, when she kissed my cheek. I felt every look, every pause. Lavina cleared her throat, raised her glass. Thank you, everyone, for being here, she said, voice warm. Then, I've walked this journey guiding her more than she knows. She praised herself, talked of wisdom, sacrifices. I always wanted her safe, even when she didn't see it. She nodded at me. Subtle applause followed. I stepped forward, appearing confident. Desmond offered a nod. I cleared my throat, opened my speech, my heartfelt words I'd crafted overnights. Then the microphone died. Silence swallowed my voice. The crowd shifted. I swallowed hard. Lavina waved at the tech crew. Let's move on, folks. Laughter. A few polite chuckles. My speech dissolved in the air. I stood stunned. A hush fell. Lavina smiled. You okay, sis? She asked. Maybe just nerves? The crowd murmured in agreement. My cousin Janelle's eyes flicked to me, lips parting. She mouthed, "She planned this." My jaw clenched. I forced out a smile and excused myself. In the restroom, I tapped mirrors, whispered, "If they can silence me now, they will silence me forever." My reflection trembled. I touched the doorframe, steadied. I remembered every gasping laugh, every staged toast. Now I felt small and enormous. Desmond appeared at the door and walked beside me outside. He confronted Lavina quietly, his voice firm. "This wasn't an accident." She shrugged. "She gets emotional," she said. He returned and pressed my hand. From the tech booth, my folded speech was handed back to me, scribbled across. "Keep it light." I sat back at the table, refusing to eat or smile. My silence felt louder than speech. Under the table, I pressed record on my phone, narrating what I saw. Every tense glance, every shift in body weight. Desmond placed his hand over mine, not to pause, but to steady. Lavina raised another toast. "To the groom who lets the bride talk too much." Laughter exploded. Desmond didn't laugh. He stood, pulled out my chair, offered his arm. "We're done here," he whispered. I nodded. I rose. I left. I walked past guests, candles flickering. As we reached the gate, Janelle hurried after us. She held up her phone. "You need to hear what she said about you last week." I have it recorded. My eyes snapped open, chest pounding, sweat slick across my skin. For a moment, all I saw was ceiling. My heart thundered so loud I thought someone might hear it. Desmond was gone. His side of the bed, cold, empty. I pressed my hand to my scalp. My fingers felt uneven, raw in places. Panic fluttered. Lavina's laughter. A whisper. Lavender scent. I remembered something. Or at least I tried. I staggered to the mirror. My hair had been shaved in one patch, the skin there pale, glinting. A hollow stab of betrayal. This was no accident. I fumbled pockets. My speech, folded, crisp, still there. My phone buzzing with missed calls. I hit play on the voice memo from dinner. There was a break. Sound dropped out. I asked for water, hands trembling. Then silence. On the patio, the wine glass still stood, untouched. It all lined up. Someone had drugged me. Grief and rage warred inside me. I pushed open the door and went downstairs, heart drumming in my ears. Staff and guests clustered in the garden. Lavina stood under fairy lights, sipping her drink. I walked over, steady despite the tremor. "Why did you do this?" I demanded, loud enough for them to hear. She turned, shock feigned. "You're imagining things," she said. My throat closed. I touched the bald patch. A gasp from the staff. Some looked away. "You fainted. Wasn't that possible?" Lavina said. A murmur rippled through the guests. "Tell me who gave me that drink," I insisted. Her composure cracked. One guest stared so hard their face went pale. I felt something like power rise in me. I didn't beg. I stared. Then Desmond reappeared, his face contorted with disbelief. He took one look at my patch, my eyes. His voice barked at Lavina. "You will not get away with this." She smiled sideways. "You'll never believe she spiked herself," she said. But Desmond's phone lit up. Videos, texts. He showed me clips from guests earlier that evening, Lavina joking with staff, pausing near the bar. I felt an alliance settle between us. The crowd held its breath. No one intervened. A staff member asked Lavina to step aside. She refused. Phones came out. Lavina tried to play it off. "It was just nerves," she said, but I addressed them all. "This wasn't me. This was orchestrated." Silence spread. Then Janelle stepped forward, her phone raised. A voice memo played. "Make sure she forgets tonight." Lavina's voice clearer than ever. I inhaled. I pulled up my sleeve, revealed the bald spot to the circle of faces, then I handed my phone to Desmond. The recording played, every word laid bare. Lavina's mask fell. Her eyes darted, she stuttered. I didn't watch her crumble. I walked away. Desmond by my side, guests whispering behind. My pulse steady now. I paused at the gate and heard someone whisper behind us. "This is just day one." I woke before dawn, heart thrumming in the quiet of our bedroom. My mind replayed last night's confrontation. Lavina's face, Desmond's rage, the crowd's hush. I felt hollow and electric at once. Desmond was gone early. He said he had to meet someone about the video clips. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, tension coiling in my chest. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Janelle. She had pulled the raw video from Lavina's private storage. My pulse caught. This could change everything. Janelle arrived, breathless, carrying a USB and her phone. We barreled into the study and locked the door. She handed me the drive, her eyes hard. We sat side by side in silence until she pressed play. On screen, Lavina paced a dim backstage room. Her lips moved close to a mic. "Make sure she forgets how proud she is." Audio drifted in, instructions to staff, laughter, footsteps near a drink. My lips stung. I watched her hand brush the rim of a wine glass. She whispered to someone off camera. In one clip, I saw her tilt the bottle. The evidence was that exact moment I'd been drugged. No ambiguity. My throat tingled with anger and validation. Desmond burst in then. He saw the screen. Saw me. My voice trembled as I explained. He nodded, counting every detail. We sat across from each other, sketching a strategy. Release it tomorrow during rehearsal dinner. Leak a snippet tonight and let it spread. He warned that Lavina might cry defamation, accuse us of fabrication. I leaned forward. We'll time it when all eyes are on her. Toast night. He agreed, eyes firm. That evening, we entered the same garden stage, this time with close family and staff. Lavina glowed under the lanterns, greeting guests with enforced warmth. I sat at the head of the table, phone in my hand, pulse steady. Conversations ebbed. Near the end, Desmond's voice boomed. "May I speak?" Everyone turned. He projected the video. The projector flickered. Lavina's rehearsal played. Gasps filled the room, faces twisted. Lavina's composure cracked. I watched her lips part, then twitch. The confession was worse than I expected. She admitted fear. "If she ever speaks," Lavina said, "she's dead to the family." My heart lurched. I rose from my seat, peeled off my glove, and exposed the bald patch. Shock rippled. I looked at the crowd. Phones glinted. I took a breath and said, "I was silenced. Not anymore." My voice didn't shake. It rang. Lavina stumbled, swallowed, eyes wide. The public shifted in their chairs. I saw toppled alliances. I felt an odd power. Guests began leaving quietly. Some stayed, whispering. Lavina bolted, tears in her eyes. Desmond reached for me, his hand firm on my arm. I looked at Janelle. She nodded. Together, we exited under murmurs and flashlights. As we walked, a staff member behind us dropped a phone on the ground. The screen read, "After Party Confession," and I knew the war had just begun. Morning light drifted through heavy drapes, and the mansion felt built to suffocate. The halls echoed with hushed footsteps. Guests arrived, dressed in their best, smiles tight behind polite eyes. Today was the wedding, though I had no intention of walking that aisle unchanged. Desmond stood by me, elegant in his suit, evidence folder hidden beneath his arm. My resolve was steel. Tonight I would rewrite my story. Lavina greeted every guest with practiced charm, her voice smooth, eyes warm. She paused behind me, leaned in and whispered, "Don't embarrass the family again." I held my breath. I nodded, all the while plotting how to flip this entire stage. Her glare earlier in the driveway returned fresh in my mind, cold and challenging. I let her believe I was calm, but fury simmered beneath. At cocktail hour, lights dimmed. Staff flicked a switch. A projector flickered to life, casting a dim field on the wall. I felt the room tilt. On screen, the deleted after-party confession clip. Lavina's voice, betrayed by her own tone, leaked. Instructions about spiking wine, the arranged haircut, her fear that I'd speak. A gasp erupted. Faces twitched. Her smile faltered. I watched her mask crack. I stepped forward, hand trembling slightly. With Arlen by my side, we triggered a second screen, a notary's recorded seal confirming the contract amendment was forged, Lavina's signature planted over mine. The crowd leaned forward. Murmurs grew into audible shock. Lavina attempted to deflect. I only meant well. My voice cut through. You meant to erase me. Faces turned. Silence swallowed the lawn. Then came the final blow. Lavina's staff wheeled out a framed photo display from past family weddings. One picture shocked me, my face replaced with Lavina's image wearing my wedding dress. The room recoiled, my chest tightened. I felt righteous anger surge. Without hesitation, I took the frame and smashed it on the stone floor. The glass shattered like verdict, shards scattering across polished marble. Silence reigned. Some guests fled, others remained, cameras raised. Desmond caught my hand. I met Lavina's hollow eyes. You tried to write me out of my own story, I said, voice steady. Tonight, I rewrite it. Flashbulbs popped, jaws slack. The cameras were mine now. As we exited under low light and candle flicker, Janelle followed us to the steps. She whispered, almost breathless, "They're going to file defamation claims." I looked back at her, eyes fierce. Defamation? Bring it on. The wedding night passed like a door closing softly. No celebration, no music, just the sound of silence after a storm. I sat alone in the guest room. My wedding gown still hung untouched on the door. The bouquet, now half wilted, leaned tiredly against the dresser. There was a soft knock. Janelle entered without waiting. She held out a faded envelope, no words, just her steady hand. I recognized the handwriting before I even took it. Mom's cursive. Neat, gentle. The flap read, "For the truth you deserve." My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the kind of ache you feel when something once lost shows up whole. I sat down on the edge of the bed, opened it slowly. Mom's words were steady, even as my vision blurred. She knew what Lavina had become. She had planned to confront it. But time caught her. She said she didn't know how to protect me, only that she never stopped trying, never stopped loving me. Her final line read, "Don't let Lavina's brokenness define your wholeness." I read that again, and again. This time the tears weren't hot. They cooled me. They steadied me. It wasn't forgiveness I felt. It was something softer, maybe release. Later that morning, Desmond and I started packing. It wasn't rushed. We took our time. Every drawer held pieces of a life I'd once believed in. I walked through each room slowly. No camera, no audience. Just me. Dad's study still smelled like old paper and coffee. That's where he used to ask me about college, about dating. The hallway where Lavina once stopped me, looked me up and down, and said, "You'll never be like me." I used to hate that. Now, it felt like a compliment. On the front porch, I stood a long while. That was where I used to imagine kids running barefoot, holiday dinners, family pictures. It held echoes, but no longer power. We didn't run. That would have given them too much. Instead, I posted a short video online. Just me, no makeup, no script. I was hurt, I was betrayed. But I'm not broken, I'm not ruined. I thanked the people who stood beside me. And then I shared something new. I was founding a nonprofit, in my mother's name, for women like me, women pushed out by their own families at the moments that should have defined their joy. The comments came fast, some tearful, some proud, all human. They reminded me I wasn't alone anymore. A week later, we held our real ceremony. No cathedral, just a quiet lakeside park, a few friends, and the wind humming low through tall trees. I wore white, but simple. Barefoot, I walked to Desmond. We said nothing rehearsed. We didn't need to. It wasn't the wedding I dreamed of. It was better. Because it was ours. Someone had set up a speaker. A voice played softly as we stood together. Sometimes the family you build matters more than the family you're born into. I didn't need applause. I had peace. Days after, I visited Mom's grave, alone. The letter, now worn and soft at the edges, sat in my hands. I placed it gently on her headstone, smoothed it flat. "I got your message," I said. "It's enough." I stood there a moment. No music, no speech, just a breeze moving through the trees. The letter lifted slightly, then settled. Some stories don't end with revenge, they end with rebirth.